strictly at the City Hall. Wow. That's odd. Are you doing an article about Kyle? Kyle Stack? Oh, okay. She just most joyful person in the whole world. I just loved her. She was my roommate at all the clerks conferences and stuff. We bunked together all the time and that. And just they did 2 stints and they'd operated on her and put 2 stents in there and it just didn't take care of it. So what a shame. Even the mayor would tell you. She was just a happy, joyful person. Yeah. Oh, sure, anything.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good truck. I'm glad you went. Glad you went.
May look like I'm rude.
Hey, I'll turn it that way.
I'm glad he got me a call. This is mine, right, John?
It's not mine. It is not mine.
She taking pictures.
Can't drink coffee this time of night anymore.
Did I get donut on it?
Yeah, I cannot do it anymore.
Coffee drinker, so I just
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Oh, okay.
How'd you get out? Was easier getting out or
I
off?
hate my pictures.
Was easier getting out?
And then we'll have no
Trunk though,
picture.
right? It's where you have balance.
I got quite a bit.
Mayor,
My grandson is bunnies were there. Got my leg in the other 6 inches. Got it over. Coming off. My right leg is the weak leg. So I'll do it. I'll figure out a way. But when I broke my ankle, my leg came out 2 years ago.
That's right. Put her one there. They were
Each time I get home,
so we could
let it go.
get out of school.
My wife came out.
People don't understand.
Air compressor.
Yeah, well, Thursdays I got,
My left leg over the steering wheel. Windshield. And I stood up and they just brought cane off.
Then we'll do that.
I was a doctor 5 days ago.
Okay, good.
if I could have the camera, please.
Put a cast in my NIS. It's guess what?
Thanks so much.
Fracture that big. I'll be riding my bike. And I did.
Got donut everywhere. That was so
Next time you bring snacks in, make
If
sure.
I could have the camera, please.
Eddie brought it. Eddie brought them coffee, and then he had a donut.
I think you're his
It
favorite.
was right out of the oven. It was still warm.
Put your microphone back on when you get a
It was
chance.
There we go.
We're gonna start back up.
Call the meeting of the December 2nd meeting of the Lincoln Park Mayor and City Council to order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which will be immediately followed by the invocation by Reverend Gary Shipling of the Blessed Hope Church. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops, I did it again.
As we begin this invocation, we'd like to offer our sympathies from the city of Lincoln Park, from our council, to the family of the mayor of Trenton, Kyle Stack, who passed away last Friday suddenly. Heavenly Father, we pray that you give comfort and peace to that family, Lord, and that you give comfort to the people in that city for the sudden loss of their newly elected mayor. And Lord, we ask for your guidance for them as they continue on in their city's business. And Heavenly Father, we ask you for your guidance here within this city. We thank you this time of year for all the wonderful blessings that we have, the recovery the city has made, and all the wonderful things that are transpiring. And Lord, we ask you to continue to bless this city, bless the members of council, the mayor, and all those who are in charge of taking us into account, our police, our fire, our Department of Public Works. Lord, we ask you to guide them, direct them, and continue to bless them throughout this year and into the next. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Reverend. If we could have roll call, please.
Councilpersons Breeding.
Present.
Higgins.
Here.
Kelsey.
Yes.
Parkinson. Ross.
Here.
Salcido.
Present.
And Mayor Carnes.
Here. Well, good evening. I hope everyone had a joyous Thanksgiving. Seems like that 4-day holiday disappears before you realize it's gone. On Thanksgiving itself, there were volunteers that were out there in force. Reverend Schiffling, who was here from Blessed Hope, had a dinner there from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., I believe, that was free to all comers. He operates a food pantry there, so he's not new to feeding people. It's just sometimes at Thanksgiving the need is felt more keenly. That was very nice. Another group that got together to help out with folks. This one is particular, the Meals on Wheels in cooperation with the Senior Alliance. There's a group of folks that go to the Park Restaurant and the Icarus Hall right next to it, and they prepare meals on holidays because the obviously the Meals on Wheels doesn't operate at this particular time. So you have people that come in for a couple of hours to load up. At this particular time, it was 250 meals. Leah Moraz from the Park Restaurant, Bob Steele from the Steel Trap, John Papolis, Ray Alex, to just name a few of the dignitaries that just came in and got right to work, got the meals done, and then boom, they're on their way. And then the Senior Alliance volunteers took over at that time in delivering all of these meals. There are other groups in town, I'm sure, that were out doing their part, and we thank you, everyone that had any part with that. Mentioned in the invocation, Mayor Kyle Stack. I got to know Kyle got volunteer a little bit in the city of Trenton, and she would always attend the various events. Her and her husband Jasmine, a very nice lady, a great leader for the city of Trenton. I imagine that they are all reeling because a loss of that magnitude is beyond comprehensive for that town. They're looking to have their leadership and their everything set to go for the next 4 years, especially with the difficulties of the McLouth factory, that property being redone and such. It's just, I mean, it's a terrible loss for her family, but on the community as a whole. And plus, with the Downriver Community Conference, she had just accepted a position of leadership on there with the board. So, again, our condolences go out to her and her family. Coming up on Saturday, December 14th. Now, this is important because you are going to need to get advance tickets for this. I've been to this event on a couple different occasions. It's Breakfast with Santa. It is very well done. There is a breakfast, obviously. Santa's there, and then a private tour private as far as the attendees at the event of Fantasyland, which is very neat. So This is Saturday, December 14th. Doors open at 9:30 a.m. And the breakfast starts at 10 a.m. It's advance tickets only, and you can pick up the tickets at the Kennedy Memorial Building, 3240 Ferris Avenue, for those that are not aware. So tickets are $10 advance only, and make sure that you get it for this great time. Speaking of Fantasyland, their grand opening was on this past Saturday at 5 p.m. The Lincoln Park High School marching band was there performing, and most importantly, Santa was there. So he is in residence at Fantasyland, waiting for people to come and visit. Chamber of Commerce has done a wonderful job, and it was up to and better than the times that I've seen over the previous years. And pictures are available, and usually you think you have to wait forever to get these pictures, and no, boom, they're right there. So they're open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., and then on Saturdays and Sundays from noon to 8 p.m. So make sure that you take a visit. Also on that same day was the tree lighting at Fort and Southfield, right across from City Hall here. Put on by the Downtown Development Authority, and then in cooperation or conjunction with the Historical Museum. So they had the opening with and Santa was there too. So he made the quick jump from Fantasyland over to our tree lighting
On a fire truck.
on a fire truck. He likes those red vehicles. Somehow he's just. So he was there, and then they went back to the Historical Museum for some carols, and the folks at White Castles were kind enough to donate some sliders for everybody. So it went very well. So it was nice, and thanks to the DDA for putting that on. And with that is all that I have, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Resolved that the following items listed on the consent agenda be approved as presented to the mayor and city council. 1, approved minutes, regular meeting held November 18, 2019. 2, approved minutes, special meeting held November 18, 2019 at 6 p.m. regarding water service replacement and 2020 road program.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilpersons Kelsey?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.
Yes. That's for you. With this next ordinance or resolution, we had a study session at 6 p.m. today when this was discussed. But whereas the passing of the new marijuana initiative has presented complex implications regarding regulations, business licensing fees, and public health and safety concerns. Whereas the city attorney has recommended hiring a law firm with the specific skills and experience to guide us through incorporating these items into a new ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council retain the services of Mr. Jason Canvasser, Esquire, and the Clark Hero Law Firm to prepare the ordinances and policies regarding the implementation of the Citizens Marijuana Initiative passed by the electorate on November 5, 2019. Be it further resolved that the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign all necessary documents.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, discussion?
Just the same through the chair, the same discussion I had before, that if, when you sign the documents, if we have the issue there up to a certain amount, then after that it has to come back to the council. I'm not sure what the documents are because I haven't seen them. You and the city clerk will sign them, but I think there should be some kind of caveat in that document that we pay up to a certain amount, then it has to come back to the council to get like we do other attorneys, that would get reauthorized or increased.
Now, there is an hourly rate, so are you suggesting that we come back after a certain time, or
Well, a certain amount of-
pay a retainer?
I think after a retainer, Your Honor, some kind of figure that we can, I don't know what would be, normally we retain some of the attorneys at $5,000 a year. We can start out with $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, I'm not sure, and then go from there, but some kind of check and balance system where we have to take a look, and I'm sure we're going to have some closed-door meetings, so we'll be discussing some other issues, but I meant some kind of way of where it's not an open check is what I'm saying. I know we're going to have to pay for it, but I just need some check and balances, is all I'm saying.
Looking at the hourly rate, I
That's all.
think that probably 15,000 would be more appropriate.
That's
and then
fine.
to come back, that should see us through a couple months.
I don't have a problem with that, Your Honor, as long as there's some kind of figure on it.
Would we incorporate that into the resolution, or is it just guidelines that we would have?
You know, it wouldn't matter in either case, the Mayor, and the reason it wouldn't is I can't imagine this taking more than 2 months. They estimated $15,000 would be a fair amount. You'd have to rewrite it into the resolution, fees beyond the initial allocation of $15,000 must be brought before council for further approval. Does that work, council members?
Does that work with the mover and supporter?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't imagine, quite frankly, to go beyond that, but also understand that, and while you were in here, I was listening to a program on the first day of real legal street sales today in Detroit and the problems with regulations, that there are serious regulatory things that are going to have to be incorporated in this ordinance. So it's critical you do it right, you do it right the first time. Whatever the cost is, because the voters have elected to include it in your community, it's permitted by state law, I recommend you do it right, as you used to say at Great Lakes Steel, the first time.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, are you ready with the,
So that amending it to not exceed the $15,000 without further approval is okay with the mover and supporter? Okay. Just
all
checking.
right. Clerk call the roll.
Councilpersons Breeding?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.
Yes. Next item, resolve that resolution number 2019-438 be removed from the table.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Councilpersons Kelsey?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.
Yes. So this
This is the
next one
amended.
is the,
It's at the end, I saw.
okay, whereas the city of Lincoln Park wishes to provide all interested parties a fair and equal opportunity to attend all public meetings of the city council and its boards, commissions, and committees. Whereas the city has numerous facilities available to hold such meetings, and whereas it is the policy of the city, absent exigent emergency or other prevailing circumstances, to conduct meetings of the city council and its boards, commissions, and committees in public facilities owned and operated by the city of Lincoln Park. Whereas the city recognizes the occasional need to hold such meetings in venues not owned by the city of Lincoln Park. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council hereby require that any public meeting being held at a non-city-owned facility be approved by resolution at a meeting of the mayor and council.
So move.
Support.
Discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Councilpersons Breeding?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.
No. Next item is resolved that an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Lincoln Park by repealing section .038 vaping by minors of chapter 676 safety, sanitation, and health, and replacing it with a new section .038 entitled possession by minors be given its third and final reading and be adopted by the title only, said ordinance having been posted publicly for at least 72 hours. The City of Lincoln Park ordains that the codified ordinances be and are hereby amended by repealing and replacing section .038 of chapter 676.
So move.
Support. Discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Councilpersons Breeding?
Yes.
Mayor Carnes?
Yes.
Councilpersons Higgins?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
And Salcido.
Yes.
So this is a new Is this what we just did?
That's what you just did.
That's a beautiful thing.
No. That's not, this is the next one, I'm sorry. 3-9.
All right.
That looked like an 8 when I was looking over.
Okay. And this has to be read, and it's, yeah, here we go. Resolved that an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Lincoln Park by adding a new section, .039, to chapter 676, Safety, Sanitation, and Health, entitled Tobacco Products, Vapor Products, and Alternative Nicotine Products on School Property Penalty, be given its third and final reading and be adopted. The City of Lincoln Park ordains that the codified ordinances be and are hereby amended by adding a new section, .039, of the chapter 676 as follows. 676.039, Tobacco Products, Vapor Products, and Alternative Nicotine Products on School Property Penalty. A, except as otherwise provided in subsection D, a person shall not possess or use tobacco product, vapor product, or alternative nicotine product on school property or public property within 100 feet of school property. B, a person who violates subsection A is guilty of a civil infraction punishable with a fine of $50. C, as used in this section, school property means a building, facility, or structure or other real estate owned, leased, or otherwise controlled by a school district. II, tobacco products means a product that contains tobacco and is intended for human consumption, including but not limited to a cigarette, non-cigarette, smoking tobacco, or smokeless tobacco, or those terms as are defined in Section 2 of the Tobacco Products Tax Act, 1993, Public Act 327, MCL 205.432, and a cigar. III, vapor products means a non-combustible product that employs a heating element, power source, electronic circuit, or other electronic, chemical, or mechanical means, regardless of shape or size, that can be used to produce vapor from nicotine or any other substance, and the use of inhalation which simulates smoking. Vapor product includes an electronic cigarette, electronic cigar, electronic cigarillo, electronic pipe or similar product or device, and a vapor cartridge or other container of nicotine or other substance in a solution or other form that is intended to be used with or in an electronic cigarette, electronic cigar, electronic cigarillo, electronic pipe, or similar product or device. Vapor product does not include a product regulated as a drug or device by the United States Food and Drug Administration under 21 U.S.C. 351 to 360 FFF-7. IV. Alternative nicotine product means a non-combustible product containing nicotine that is intended for human consumption, whether chewed, absorbed, dissolved, or ingested by any other means. Alternative nicotine product does not include a tobacco product, a vapor product, food, or product, or a product regulated as a drug or device by the United States Food and Drug Administration under 21 U.S.C. 351 to 360 FFF-7. D. Subsection A does not apply to that part of school property consisting of outdoor areas, including but not limited to an open-air stadium during either of the following time periods. I, Saturdays, Sundays, and other days on which there are no regularly scheduled school hours. II, after 6 p.m. on days during which there are regularly scheduled school hours.
So move. Support.
Discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilpersons Higgins,
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
Breeding,
Yes.
Parkinson,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Salcido,
Yes.
and Mayor Carnes.
Yes. Next item has a cover letter from Doreen Christian, our Director of Community Planning and Development. And that's to schedule a CDBG public hearing. For information, at this time, the federal budget has not yet been set. My closest approximation for next year's allocation would be the current year's budget figure of $787,520. In addition to that amount, we anticipate generating funds through the operation of our residential rehabilitation revolving loan program that will be reinvested in the same program, and from housing stock improvement. Okay. Resolved that a public hearing for the 46th program year CDBG budget is hereby scheduled for Monday, February 3rd, 2020, starting at 6:30 PM and to be held in the John A. Elwesy City Council chambers of City Hall. The public is invited to attend and give testimony as to how the upcoming fiscal year community development block grant budget should be allocated, and a notice shall be placed in the official newspaper for the city and posted in city-owned buildings. Be it further resolved that Doreen Christian, Director of the Community Planning and Development, is authorized and directed to have prepared the annual action plan, environmental review record, and submit same to HUD for review and approval.
So move.
So move. Support.
Discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
On this, during this public hearing, on the report that we received from Human Resources, they still have the rehab clerk. It has not been changed, as it was brought up by a few of us, from a part-time to a full-time. That funding completely comes from CDBG. It does not come from the general fund. It doesn't, or whatever. And so I would like to know what we have to do to include this in this 46th program year CDBG budget so that it would be discussed and brought up during this public hearing. I'm not quite sure if that letter that she submitted would take care of it. I'm not sure, but I don't want us to go through this public hearing and not at least bring up the idea so that we don't have to amend it later or whatever. So I'm not quite, but now is the time.
While she's coming to the podium, if I could, Mayor, through the chair, indicate that Ms. Christian has discussed this matter with me about converting this staff person from part-time to full-time. So it's not a new subject for
Okay.
me, but she should be the one to answer your direct question. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, the funding for the rehab clerk comes out of the rehabilitation loan program. So it is already worked into the program from HUD, and all that funding comes out from there. That would be wages, benefits, et cetera, out of that program year. So it's not something that I would have to change anything for, because it's already built into the HUD, and that's how she's paid now. It's already built in the HUD regulations, so it's just her decision to decide to put her full-time.
Doreen?
Yes.
Through the chair? Do you have a part-time assistant at this time?
Right now in the CDBG program, it's me and my part-time rehab. That's it.
Okay, so are you planning on putting that part-time to full-time, or are you planning on hiring into full-time?
I would rather have the part-time as full-time because she knows that job forward, backwards, and around the clock, and I don't want to lose her. She is awesome. She has picked up that program for the residential rehab. She has picked up the sewer lateral loan program, and she's also picked up the neighborhood blight program, and she's doing all those three programs on a part-time basis.
Okay, so is that a union job?
Yes, it is.
You don't have to go for bid then. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. if I-
Yes, go ahead.
I just echo Donna's question is what do we have to do to do that? I mean, is that Doreen saying she can do it, or do we have to okay it or put a proposal? Or I guess I'm asking for direction from either the attorney, the city manager, or somebody to how we go forward with this, I guess is what I'm asking. Thank you. To discuss it or put it on a table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We would bring forward to you a recommendation regarding this and for your consideration. As I indicated, Ms. Christian discussed this matter with me when I first came to work for you, and about when I was asking her, as I did all the department heads, tell me about your department, tell me what you need, tell me what your main issues are, tell me all these kinds of things. She brought this matter up. It is on, from my perspective, it's on the table for me to work with her as well as with Lisa, the other department heads, to come up with a good budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
further discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Councilpersons Higgins,
Yes.
Breeding.
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
Parkinson,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Salcido,
Yes.
and Mayor Carnes.
Yes. Next item has a cover letter from our finance director and really assistant to the city manager, but it's under her finance director hat. That cover letter for this resolution. The city previously identified severe structure defects in the sanitary sewer system, though the work done through the Stormwater Asset Management and Wastewater or SAW grant program. As you may be aware, the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, offers financial assistance to finance improvements to the sanitary sewer system. In 2016, the city utilized the funding mechanism, and the city intent is once again authorize the sale of bonds through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program, administered by EGLE and the Michigan Finance Authority. If approved by Mayor and Council, the work that will be completed will include installation of full and sectional length cured-in-place pipeliners and sectional removal and replacement of sewers where sewers have been partially collapsed and cannot be rehabilitated by cured-in-line lining installation. Okay. So, whereas the City of Lincoln Park, County of Wayne, State of Michigan, also known as the city, has determined that it is necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare of the city to acquire, construct, furnish, and equip additions, extensions, improvements to the city's sanitary sewer system, consistent generally of the installation of full and sectional length cured-in-place pipeliners and removal and replacement of sewers, together with all necessary structures, equipment, furnishings, and all apertures and attachments thereto, titled the project. And whereas the city has been advised by the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, the EGLE, that financial assistance to accomplish the acquisition and construction of the project is available through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program, administered by EGLE and the Michigan Finance Authority. Whereas the Revenue Bond Act 94, Public Acts of Michigan 1933 as amended, provides a means for financing the purchase, acquisition, construction, improvement, enlargement, extension, and repair of public improvements, such as the project through which the issuance of revenue bonds. And whereas the city desires to authorize the issuance of bonds in one or more series payable from revenues of the sanitary sewer system under Act 94 in a total amount not to exceed $3 million for the purpose of financing all or part of the project. Whereas a notice of intent to issue revenue bonds must be published before the issuance of the bonds in order to comply with the requirements of Section 33 of Act 94. And whereas the city intends at this time to state its intentions to be reimbursed from proceeds of the bonds for any expenditures undertaken by the city for the project prior to issuance of the bonds. Now therefore be it resolved that, 1, the city clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish a notice of intent to issue the bonds in the News Herald, a newspaper of general circulation in the city. 2, the notice of intent shall be published as a display advertisement not less than 1/4 page in size and substantially the form attached to this resolution as Exhibit A. 3, the City Council of the city does hereby determine that the foregoing form of notice of intent to issue bonds and the manner of publication directed is the method best calculated to give notice to the sanitary sewer systems users and the electors residing in the boundaries of the city of this city's intent to issue the bonds, the purpose of the bonds, the security for the bonds, and the right of referendum related thereto. And the newspaper name for the publication is hereby determined to reach the largest number of persons to whom the notice is directed. 4, the city makes the following declarations for the purpose of complying with the reimbursement rules of Treasury Regs 1.150 to 2 pursuant to the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. A, as of the date hereof, the city reasonably expects to reimburse the city for the expenditures described in B below with the proceeds of debt to be incurred by the city. B, the expenditures described in this paragraph, B, are for the costs of acquiring and constructing the project, which were or will be paid subsequent to 60 days prior to the date thereof. C, the maximum principal amount of debt expected to be issued for the project, including issuance costs, is $3 million. D, a reimbursement allocation of the expenditures described in B above what the proceeds of the borrowing described herein will occur not later than 18 months after the date of I, the date on which the expenditures is paid, or double I, the date the project is placed in service or abandoned. But in no event more than 3 years after the original expenditure is paid. A reimbursement allocation is an allocation in writing that evidences the city's use of the proceeds of the debt to be issued for the project to reimburse the city for capital expenditures made pursuant to this resolution. 5, the city hereby confirms retention of Miller, Canfield, Paddock, and Stone, PLC, as bond counsel in connection with the financing of the proposed project, notwithstanding Miller Canfield's periodic representation of the MFA. 6, all resolutions and parts of resolutions, insofar as they conflict with the provision of this resolution, be and are same hereby are rescinded.
Through the chair, when I can,
I'm
I
sorry?
have a question.
So
Well,
moved.
we need a mover and supporter before.
I'm so sorry.
So moved.
When I can.
Support.
Okay. All right.
Now,
Now it's discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Mann, I'd like to know, what is the city's current bond rating? I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
Who knows?
Offhand, I don't know, actually. If Mr. Benzinski was here, he would know.
And so we will not know what the interest rate will be until such time as the bonds are sold.
So these particular bonds are being sold to the Michigan Finance Authority through the Eagles Clean Water Revolving Fund, State Revolving Fund. So it's a 20-year, right, so you know who the purchaser is. It's a 20-year low interest rate. And I think the rate for this quarter is like 2 or 2.25.
Okay, one more. So this funding, to pay for this, will come from the revenues of the sanitary sewer system.
Correct.
So is this something that will be passed on as an additional fee to the residents?
That I'm not sure of. That's
Okay.
more of a finance question.
We have our finance director, Lisa Griggs.
Good evening. So it will become part of the operating expenses, the debt repayment will be, so then it's built into the rates as part of the regular annual rate setting. So yes, ultimately, it's paid by the rates.
Through the chair. Your Honor, I'd also like to know, we did this back in 2016. We're obviously still paying for those,
Correct. That would have been a 20-year bond as well.
and they have to be 20 years?
Through the State Revolving Fund program, yes, they do. If you sold them on the open market, you experience a higher interest rate, some added issuance costs, and it'd be a shorter term, though. You could sell, 10 or 15-year bonds. But through the State Revolving Fund, it's a 20-year program. And if you qualify for some financially distressed communities, they can qualify for a 30-year program, actually. But these are being sold for 20 years.
Through the,
Yes, sir.
through the chair to Lisa, I guess, aren't we still paying that $2 million we borrowed also out of the sewer fund for the retirement
Yeah,
thing?
yes, but
We-
keep in mind, this all came as part of, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but all part of the SAW grant. Right. So the work that was done and determined what type of work needed to be done. This financing is in place for that purpose, to help us pay for those repairs that need to be done to the system.
Well, I understand that, but we're already loaning on top of loan is what I'm getting at. We have a $2 million and a $3 million and 16 and another $3 million that's coming. So and with 20 years is nowhere close to any of this being paid off. And we're just adding more low interest debt, but debt to the sewer. So that means, in essence, we're raising, well, we have to pay for it, but I was just wondering how much debt do we put into the sewer and water fund before it becomes unreasonable? Because that's what we're doing, and it takes 20 years to pay them off. I mean,
Right.
it's unfortunate, but so right now, we've got close to what's left of the 2 million from the borrow in the first place.
Got about 10 years left on
About
that
10
one.
years left of that, then we have the 20 years, if we do this, 3 million, and we have any other loans out of this water and sewer fund?
No,
So we'd have
the
3
three.
million something and change still, at least 10 years to pay up the initial, and then 20 more, or actually 10 years after that. Okay.
Right, but keep in mind, this is to replace the infrastructure that
Right.
needs it.
Well, I understand that. I'm just going where, and it goes to what Council Pro Tem Donna said about the debt. I'm just looking at how much debt we're digging this hole, and I mean, it's all needed.
Right.
But we're digging that thing a lot faster than we figured we'd be doing it. But that was my question. Thank you. That's
You're
all.
welcome.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
could you pay these off early if you wanted to?
That's a good question. The answer is it depends, actually, because the Michigan Finance Authority, from time to time, issues its own bonds to receive funds to purchase your bonds and other participants. So for the first 10 years at least, they're non-callable. You would not be able to pay them off early. After the first 10 years, you can pay them off with the permission of the Michigan Finance Authority. So you'd have to check with them. They'd have to check the bond terms for the outstanding bonds that funded these. And if they could call their bonds, essentially, then they would let you pay your bonds off early. So it all depends.
Okay, so if there was a saving on the sewer funds, we couldn't just add that up and pay the bonds off?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. You'd need permission from the Michigan Finance Authority. One other quick point. Although we've prepared this resolution and notice in the amount of $3 million, not to exceed $3 million, your current project estimates from your engineer are actually about $2.5 million. Okay, but there's some cushion in there in case bids come in high or the project scope changes a little bit. Okay, you're scheduled, I think, to take bids around the end of January, and then we would come back before you, probably in your first meeting of February, with the actual ordinance which authorizes the issuance of the bonds and has a more firm number in that.
So in the investigation, and this may be more for Lisa, the investigation through the SAW grant identified that there were these repairs that were necessary to do that, correct? We have no other funds that are available to start these repairs and to get this necessary work done.
Correct.
So the only way that we can do this is to obtain,
No matter what, even if we had budgeted the funds for this, it's still going to be paid through the rates. This is just a way for us to get more done, financed through the Michigan Finance
the only way
Authority.
that we could do this is through these low-interest loans that would be paid back over a 20-year period.
Correct.
And it may be in the future that we identify more than, so,
The SAW grant, I think, is done now, correct, John? Yes. So this would be the final phase of that.
okay.
Through
Very
the
good.
chair,
Yes, sir.
Lisa's still up there. Would it be cheaper or more frugal to take some of our fund balance and just pay us back instead of paying even though it's low interest, and we could pay it, instead of paying it 20 years, we could pay it, I mean, we have some fund, I mean, I know we're not supposed to, but we're doing good on putting the money away for the fund balance. Would it be cheaper if we had a way of doing that compared to making a 20-year loan? I mean, it
Well, the
sounds-
fund balance that we've been putting away is general fund, so we wouldn't want to use that for water and sewer. Water and sewer is paid by the rates of the system. We don't have a lot of reserve in that fund because our expenses are so high because there's water leaks and constant repairs in the system. And we do have money set aside for capital projects, but we don't have any, in order to fund $2.5 million of capital, over the span, I'm not sure how the project's maybe a year or two for this specific one. In order to do that, the rate would be astronomical. So funding it over the 20-year period is more feasible for the ratepayers.
All right, thank you. Just
You're
an
welcome.
idea.
Further, yes, sir.
At one time, the city was borrowing money from the sewer fund. Has it all been repaid?
No, that has not been repaid yet.
So if we take the money and repay the sewer fund, then we might have enough money to do this job, correct?
Well, the general fund does not have enough money to pay all of that back, so there would not be enough. It'd be
Are you-
several years.
Has it been being paid back at all?
Yes, we make annual payments.
How long is it going to take you to pay it off?
I think that one is estimated at like a 10-year schedule. We're a few years into it. And general fund can always pay more back, but 2.5 million would deplete the fund balance again at this point. We'd be back in receivership.
Well, so that means that the city shouldn't borrow from the sewer fund again, is that correct?
That would not be my recommendation to do that again, correct?
Mayor, I'd like to say one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, I mean, my questions in the very beginning were basically, I was just trying to get more information on it, but this project is for sewers that have partially collapsed and cannot be rehabilitated with cured-in pipeline lining. So it was discovered during the SAW grant, and I realized it had to be done. It just, I needed clarification as far as the amount of work or the interest or whatever, but this is something that has to be done. I mean, we don't have a choice on this, and that's all.
No discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilpersons Higgins?
Yes.
Oh, citizen.
Was your hand up earlier? I didn't notice it, sir.
You didn't call for further discussion.
Well, sir, go ahead. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Takes 3 minutes.
Good evening, Richard Kudrak. I don't think any resident understood any of that. The bottom line is, of this $3 million, you're talking about this, you're talking about that, you're talking about reimbursements. How much expense is going to be passed on to the residents of that $3 million? Thank you.
The reimbursements just are, if the water and sewer fund pays for any expenses prior to the debt being issued, they're reimbursed from the bond issuance. The same as we did with the previous bond issuance we did for the roads. So there were some expenses initially up front for attorney costs and those sorts of things, and we had not received the bond funds yet. So then once the bond funds were received, we reimbursed the fund that paid them initially. That's all that means.
Thank you. Further from the audience? Seeing none. Again, clerk, call the roll.
Councilpersons Higgins?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes?
Yes. Next item is also from Doreen Christian, Director of Community Planning Development, Parks and Recreation. All right, whereas the city entered into a contract with Grant Inliner, formerly Liquid Force Services, for the 2019 sanitary sewer pipelining project. Whereas during the project, 2 locations had root and water infiltrations at the joints at Hazel Irene Eastman between St. John's and Ford Boulevard and Laguna Avenue south of Monte. Therefore, be it resolved that change order number 2 to increase the contract for the 2019 sanitary sewer pipelining project, the amount not to exceed $28,078.60 is hereby approved. Funds to come from CDBG budget account number 24934-75519, street and utility replacement, and account number 420-001-A18000 water and sewer capital fund.
So move.
Support.
Discussion?
I have a question, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know that they're talking about installing a cured-in liner. What kind of disruption does that give those residents while this project is being done?
John Kazoo, Director DPS.
Good evening again. On any one particular block, what'll happen is the contractor will notify the residents that on such and such date, we will be installing this cured-in-place process. And what they ask them to do is limit or not wash clothing, dishes, or run a dishwasher. Just use minimal process. They have to install the liner. They have to blow out the liner. They have to cure the liner. Then they have to go back and cut all the service leads opened up. It's approximately an 8 to 12 hour process.
But you don't turn the water off to the residents?
No, this has nothing to do with water. This is sewer.
run into the sewer, so,
They would be allowed to, the water will still come into the home, the potable water. They could still take their showers, flush their toilets, stuff like that, because a service lead does have a certain amount of volume in the service lead of itself. And what they will do is they will reopen up that service lead once that cured-in-place liner is installed into the city's sewer. And they will have more than enough time, let's say, so that as long as they don't get over-exaggerant or with washing clothes and utilizing the dishwasher repetitively during the day, they will be fine. And the city has had plenty of these installed.
how long are those warranted for?
Pardon me?
The warranty on that kind of work?
The warranty is 2 years, but the longevity, right now, they're predicting 90 to 100 years of the product.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, John.
Thank you. If I could just comment about this, the other option is to install a new sanitary sewer and abandon the one that is there now, which would be open cutting, and it would be considerably more disruptive to the people, number one, but it's about 10 times more expensive to install a new sewer than it is to line an existing sewer. Now, not every sewer can be lined. Just a moment ago was discussion about some sewers that are so dilapidated, they've so disintegrated, etc. There's nothing to line. And this is one where utilizing the city's block grant monies or even water and sewer monies or whatever, this happens to be block grant money, it's so prudent for the city to do it this way. We do ask the people that are utilizing that sewer on that street, as he's indicated, to curtail as much as possible their usage for that 8 to 12 hour period. But it is really quite, when you think about 1 day or half a day's worth of disruption versus weeks of disruption, it really, and then it is so much more prudent in terms of funding. This is really the way to do this wherever you can.
Right. I think just the advance notice to
Right.
the residents would be.
And we would
ideal.
work with, John and his staff and Doreen, et cetera, to let everybody know what's happening and why, and so that, it's quite a process, and how they go back and drill out so that everybody's sanitary lead from their house gets into the pipe properly and there's no blockages. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilpersons Breeding?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.
Yes. Okay. Next item on October 21st, we approved a charter amendment regarding a millage renewal. That was sent to the Attorney General's office for approval, and they sent it back with 2 minor changes for that. So that's where we come with this next resolution.
I'm not certain, Your Honor, that you have to read the entire resolution, just that it supersedes, unless your clerk wants you to read it all. You're struggling with.
Let's go with it. Resolved that notice is hereby given that a proposed charter amendment regarding a millage renewal be submitted to the electors of the city of Lincoln Park as a special election to be held on Tuesday, March 10, 2020. Further be resolved that said notice states how both the charter presently reads and the proposed charter amendment language. Notice of proposed charter amendment number 1, Chapter 7, Section 5, renewal police and fire millage. The ballot question is as follows. It is proposed that the city of Lincoln Park be authorized to continue to levy 3.4591 mil in excess of the limitation imposed by law, restoring a portion of the charter millage authorization previously approved by the electors, since reduced by the Headley Amendment, solely for police and fire purposes for 3 additional years, 2020 through 2023. If approved, the millage renewal would generate approximately $1,853,987 in 2020. Shall the charter amendment millage renewal be approved? Yes, no. Now therefore be it resolved by a 3/5 vote of the City Council of Lincoln Park that Section 5 of Charter 7 of Chapter 7 of the City Charter be amended. The city has determined that if this amendment is approved, it will become effective pursuant to MCLA 117.24 when filed with the county clerk and the Secretary of State. Chapter 7, Section 5 of the City Charter, existing charter, authorize a tax of not to exceed 3.4591 mils for 3 years, 2017 through 2020, solely for police and fire purposes. Proposed charter amendment, authorize a renewal of the millage not to exceed 3.4591 mils for 3 years, 2020 through 2023, solely for police and fire purposes. Be it further resolved that this resolution supersedes Resolution 2019-420, passed on October 21, 2019. I'll move on this.
Support.
Mayor, in case you're all confused and looking at this, the Assistant Attorney General for punctuation removed a question mark and put a period. That's the difference here.
Took out a shall and
And
put
took
it
out a
as if
shall and-
proposed.
That was the Assistant Attorney General for grammar. So,
Okay. Discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Mayor Carnes?
Yes.
Councilpersons Kelsey?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcedo?
Yes.
Okay, now we move on to our city manager's report. Mr. Zeck?
Claims?
Oh, still want to do that?
Yeah.
There's a number 10, isn't there?
Pay some bills.
On the line?
Oh, I just passed right by it.
I'm ready to report, but there is a number 10.
Hang on to that.
I'll hang on to that.
All right, resolved that accounts and claims payable for those items greater than $25,000 be approved as follows. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, December 2019 retirees and SB actives, $169,798.04. Blue Cross Blue Shield, December 2019 retiree Medicare, $36,924.22. District Court, December 2019 payment, $49,255.17. Downriver Utility Wastewater, November 2019 excess flow charges, $103,993. GFL Environmental, September 2019 price increase. October 2019 DPS dumpster, SVC, December 2019 city dumpsters, and November 2019 curbside collection, $78,488.68. HMC LLC 2019 concrete reconstruction utility pavement repair programs, $273,433.56. McMillan Group Incorporated demolitions at 1154 Cleveland, 1775 Ford Boulevard, and 1360 Monte, $56,265. Millennia Technologies new phone service system and service, $25,244.82. City Revenue, October 2019 dumping services, $29,036. Wayne County, May, June, July prisoner housing, $28,350.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Councilperson Salcedo?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes?
Yes. All right, Mr. Zeck, you have the floor. It's now
Thank you,
your
Mr.
time.
Mayor, members of the City Council. The number 10 I was referring to is a request that came today from your consultant that's working with you relative to bringing to you some candidates for you to consider as your next city manager. Mr. Vetrano has communicated with the city attorney and myself and with the human resources manager today wherein he would like to have a closed session with you on December 16th at 6:30 PM. And the city attorney has reviewed the matter, and we respectfully request that you call for a closed session for that evening at 6:30 PM to have him discuss with you the candidates he recommends that you consider for an interview.
Have a resolution there?
A resolution sheet.
And please note, members of council, that you can only meet to review the applications for those who check the box that they want to have it kept private and not disclosed. Very limited exception to the Open Meetings Act, just those who have checked on their application, they don't want their identity disclosed. It's a very narrow focus.
So the wording of the resolution, one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Mayor. Sorry to interrupt. I'll let
That's
Mr.
fine.
Zeck do that.
6:30?
Are you ready? Okay, the purpose of the closed session would be to take a report, or have a report made to the mayor and city council by Mr. Vitrano regarding the applicants that he recommends that they consider for an interview. He'll
That have requested that their identity be kept private.
Through the chair, if I could ask just a question before we begin. Does it have to be, what about the ones who haven't checked that? How do we look at those people?
An open
At a
meeting.
public meeting.
Out in the open meeting.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can do them in the open.
Okay.
The other thing is you won't receive the documents for these individuals until the time of the meeting in advance because of, and they won't be submitted by electronic mail either because of the protections of the Open Meetings Act.
So again, you won't be having interviews on the 16th. He would like to discuss with you who he would like you to interview and why. Okay? Who he would like to recommend to you that you bring in here, I presume sometime in January, to interview.
Ask a further question then. If we're only going to be told the private ones in the back room, when would we find out about the public ones?
You will find out from when he makes his report to you on the 16th in closed session who has asked for anonymity and who has not.
Okay.
Okay?
Through the chair, I got another question.
But tell you what, let's get this resolution going, and then we'll turn over to discussion after that. How's that? I'll move on this, by the way.
I'll support. Question through the chair, just quickly. What time again on the 16th?
6:30, sir.
6:30, thank you.
Okay, resolved that a special meeting for the,
Resolved that a special meeting be scheduled for December 16th, 2019 at 6:30 PM to recess into closed session to discuss applicants for city manager who have requested anonymity.
there you go, it's already been moved and supported, so we have discussion now. So,
Through the
yes.
chair. Eddie,
Yes, ma'am.
under the Open Meeting Act, Councilman,
Yes, no, that's right.
Counsel.
Tell me what you want.
Attorney,
Yes,
Eddie?
I answered it.
to actually look at these applications, the last time, each time we have interviewed for, I'm not interviewed, when we have selected, gone from 15 to 4, that was all done at an open meeting. I didn't think it qualified under the closed meeting, the Open Meeting Act as far as what is allowable. If we were actually interviewing, that's when it comes into play, but if they don't, they have the right to move from this room and meet in closed session to discuss their application, but
There's also a provision in the act for reviewing applications for those who don't want their identity disclosed. It's a very narrow exception. They have to check in the box when they apply that they don't want their identity disclosed at that time. You'll just review them. You can't make decisions in the back room.
right.
Just reviewing the applications.
Okay.
And it's because, I presume particularly if they were working like in Allen Park, they're afraid they might get fired.
Okay.
Not that he's applied, so.
Further discussion?
Create some great questions.
It's created some controversy.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Carnes?
Yes.
Councilpersons Higgins?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Salcido?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the number 10 you were talking about. All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
Now we're going forward here. I would just like to report that at the next meeting also, the suggestion, I believe it was made by Councilman Higgins, that the Hennessy and Associates look at a different street that you had put forward is to be considered for paving in 2020 over a street that was in the project. They went out and looked at that street, and they are recommending an amendment to their 2020 paving program based on your comment. They went out and looked and saw the street you were pointing out was worse than one nearby it. So there will be an amendment proposed to you next meeting regarding your 2020 paving program. So to be looking for that. Also, I would like to report, as I did this in writing to you, but for the general public and those in the room tonight, they're members of the general public, for the month of October, 28 tons of recyclables were taken in by GFL, and through the first 15 days of the month of November, 39 more tons of recyclables was taken in by GFL. We will get the figure for the remainder of November, and I'll pass that along to you. And then on a regular basis, we'll give you the monthly total of recyclables that the residents have been putting out and at the curb on their trash day. I would just like to reiterate again a comment that I made after Mr. Carmagna was here and he passed around those pictures that you all took a look at of recyclables that have been so-called contaminated by items put into the bin that don't belong there and what happens with them. As you can tell, that's an extreme situation. And the drivers of the truck are in a position to pass by a recycling container that they can see openly has been contaminated. Now, if the lid is shut and there's things inside the driver cannot see, then the batch can be contaminated once it's dumped into the truck, and then they take it to the recycling center and dump the whole thing. But by and large, our residents are complying with the instructions about what to put in the container. There's been no comment to Mr. Kazoo or to myself about, boy, we're getting a lot of contaminated recycling from Lincoln Park. So the good people out there are reading the literature. They know what they can put in the container. And in 15 days, 39 tons was 58,000 pounds of recycling was brought in.
Okay, I have two questions. One, could I get a number of rubbish so I can compare the poundage?
Yes,
in the
we'll get
future?
that for you.
Okay.
You want the tons of trash that went to Riverview Highlands as well as to how much recycling.
Right, so I get a comparison.
Got it?
Okay, and my second question would be, where did they decide it's contaminated? Do they take it to the recycling place first and then decide it's contaminated? Does the driver decide it's contaminated and then it just doesn't go there? When
Well,
is that decision made?
Okay. If the driver sees contaminated recycling on his route, he will pass the container by. He'll report that to his supervisor. The supervisor will communicate with Mr. Kazoo and me. Okay? If contaminated recycling is brought to the recycling facility and is dumped out, they will see that it's been contaminated. They will take that recycling and they'll take it to a landfill.
Okay, so they're the ones who make that decision?
Right.
Okay.
They'll see it on the floor, so to speak.
All right.
Okay?
Through the chair. I talked to Sam Carmagno a week or so ago, and I asked him about a percentage of what we picked up and presented what's going to the dump. Also, to explain to me that if the whole load is not contaminated, they dump it and they start to sort it, and the stuff that's contaminated gets thrown out.
Right.
So if you got 50,000 pounds, and 10 of it's contaminated, and 10 of it goes to the dump.
Right.
The rest of it goes back into recycling.
And gets processed at the recycling facility.
And I asked him for some figures on it in the future, and he said he'd take care of that.
Right. He's working with us.
Through the chair.
Oh, he's a good man.
Through the chair, if I might, there was a discussion, and John, you weren't here when it happened, that when we went into recycling, if we would, which we did, that there would be a counting, I guess, after a year to determine what we save on the landfill cost compared to recycling costs, because we're paying for both, but obviously one's gonna reduce and we pick the other one up because we're paying that separately for recycling, okay? So I guess after a certain period of time, like maybe 6 months, if you're still here, which I hope you are, can we get a kind of like a rough draft? Because that is supposed to be a cost savings to the residents, even though they're paying for the recycling. It was supposed to offset the cost of the landfill because of the which has been discussed here on the floor, the less amount of tonnage that's actually going to the landfill, which is what Councilman Higgins was asking. So I'd like to see some, as we get further down, because then we have to make an adjustment to the cost factor, because that was the whole idea with Sam, that we would be saving money on one end after a period of time to see how this works out. So if you would kind of put that in
Sure.
your bonnet, and maybe
We
further down the
will,
line, we could
as I
get some
indicated,
figures.
we'll do it on a monthly basis, tell you about the recycling. We'll give you a report at 6 months as to the total amount of trash that's gone to Riverview Highlands and how much recycling. You'll have that figure, and we can do the math together.
Thank
And as long as we're going that far, if we could get a report on the amount of trash we're taking in now, if we could find out the amount of trash we've had in the past, so that we can get a basic, how much is shifted over to the recycling bin.
John, do we have those numbers year over year, month to month? We'll figure it out. Sounds like the commercial.
In previous years, the city of Lincoln Park has always got a total tonnage. And let me say, back in 2017, we would get a total tonnage, 16 total tonnage. We get the total tonnage going to Riverview. Now, we will be able to get the same thing for the futuristic years, and we should still be able to get the same tonnage that's been recycled, so you can do that comparison.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to a subject that is always a little difficult, is to perhaps the mayor made a mistake about the hours for Fantasyland on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm going to ask the Recreation and Parks Director to come forward.
It's not 12 to 8?
I believe it's 2 to 8, but I could be wrong, you could be right, and I'd be glad to be wrong if it's me. And I'm going to ask I'm going to ask the Parks Director, who spoke with me about this today, and I believe she said 2 to 8.
2 to 8.
And I just didn't want the people to show up at noon on Saturday and Sunday and wonder where's Santa.
That's okay. Fantasyland on Lincoln Park Chamber of Commerce, I just texted hers, completely wrong hours, so the mayor got 99% of it right, so we're going to give him kudos for that.
All right.
Used to be 12. It used to be 12 o'clock.
Ho, ho, ho.
When?
We're not doubting you. We're not doubting
3
you.
years ago. I'll show you the flags.
Pretty good.
So that concludes,
Errors happen. Okay.
that concludes my report. I know Mr. Myers is anxious to give his, I should say, and I'm interested in piggybacking onto the end of his report with a human resources report that we have prepared for you, which is at your place, and we also emailed it to you earlier today.
Through the
But there's
chair.
a copy of it at your place tonight, emailed earlier to you today. With a short week last week, based on the comments that you made at the last meeting, we would have liked to have got this to you last Wednesday, but we were trying to get things done, so it's at your place. If you prefer to hold this over until the 16th to talk about human resources overall, we can do that, but I know Mr. Myers would like to talk to you about the building department.
Through the chair, I have one question, though, for you. It's on that report that you're going to talk about. Department of Treasury, they only have one cashier? I thought she had two. Or is she still sharing with the water? I mean, you only have listed, I just didn't know if the report was inaccurate. You only have
Well,
one.
Ms. Griggs has an answer.
They have the one that's assigned specifically to Treasury and then the one that's shared with water. But she's doing primarily Treasury work. Yep, you're welcome.
Through the chair while you're up there, Lisa. It says you want to go to Downriver Community Conference. for applications. What other source are you using to advertise openings at City of Lincoln Park?
I do not do that, so I can't answer specifically. I know we use the Applicant Pro software, which advertises out to numerous places, Monster, all kinds of places. Specifically what they are, I can't tell you, but we went to them about a year and a half ago, I think. So
We sent you that memo recently that listed all the places that Applicant Pro goes to. I sent it to you about 2 weeks ago. I did not bring it with me tonight, but I would be glad to resend it to all of you again so that you can see where all those, where all the information goes out about our vacancies. But it was about 2 weeks ago that we sent that. It was an item that was sent to you in May, and the human resource manager provided it to me, and we sent it. Again, I'm thinking it was 2 weeks ago. It could have been possibly 3 weeks, but I'll redo it.
Thank you.
Quickly through the chair to the mayor, Bobby from Senator Senator Bullock's office, yeah. So that didn't come out right. Sorry, Bobby. So, apologize to your boss, but if you could recognize Bobby there, he's the AA to Marshall Bullock, the senator that represents our city. I just want to, if you could recognize him, he comes down a lot.
Glad you could be here, sir.
It should come up.
So I take it we're going to Robert Myers, John Myers?
Yeah.
Turn to stretch.
Okay.
Remote.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening. I just want to give out a couple thanks along the way before we jump into this. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. This is the end of my second full year of being employed by the city as a building official, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that you've given me and entrusted me to be part of the building department structure. The success really is broad-based, not narrow. If it wasn't for the other departments that have agreed over the last 2 years to partner and create and develop and support, Steve Martin and his team of inspectors have literally been available to us to be complaints for us to get into facilities and make corrections, both in residential and commercial. So we give thanks to Steve and the fire department. Will Brown knows him later, I'm sure. Number two, we've been valued by Doreen in this last year particularly, and tapping CDBG monies and resources for our dangerous buildings and all the issues that we've been involved there. If she wasn't part of that and strongly supporting what we were trying to do in the city, that would have been a challenge to where we were going. John Gazoo, clearly, and his team, anytime we've asked for a help, a water shut-off, evaluation of a sewer system, of the street issues, we spent a lot of time together on a number of issues trying to find the best solution between building and utilities in our city. And John's never been less than available to sacrifice his minute of time so that we can get some of the things done in the building department very promptly and quickly. Police department, again, has been extremely strong even in this last fall because of their support to what we're trying to do. They've assisted us to closing 2 residential occupational houses that were in such bad shape that we actually had to, by legal administration, remove the owner occupants from their homes and shut down the doors. And the police department were a part of that. They've been a part of 3 search warrants this year, and I know they'll be in part of between 3 or 5 more in the next 30 days or so as we address several issues that we cannot manage without search warrant structures. Of course, the courts have put up with us more than any of the others as we have pestered them, and you'll see that in our report. And of course, on site of that, in this last year, trying to work with the rental issues and the legal battles that we've had there, the legal department, Mr. Zelenak and Amy Higgins have put up with me for hours and hours. And then, of course, we have two people that we've annoyed and probably should have been kicked out of their office many, many times, and that's the clerk's office. And she's been very helpful, very patient, as we've built over the last 2 years what we think is a growing and structural sound building department for you, the city of Lincoln Park. The other one is our assessing's office. We've had to tap them a lot as we've grown into more and more LLCs and property issues that we faced in the last 5 to 6 months. So if it wasn't for the departments willing to play together and be of help and being patient with me, you wouldn't even be where we are today. And so I thank you as a council, and I thank them as department heads, giving us a shot at being successful as a team in the entire city of Lincoln Park. All I have to do is get it to work now. This is really only a 5-year review. It's a very short selection of notes because some of it is redundant that you may not be interested in, but these are permits over 5 months for you in certificates, permits, and enforcements. Enforcements literally are tickets that we've written in the last 5 months, and we filed with the 25th District Court. When you think of those numbers, you have to realize that each of those tickets usually take at least one adjournment, if not 2 or 3, because the system and the courts have decided that as we ticket them and process the payment of their ticket, we'd rather see them being compliant, and holding them to court hearings on a regular basis enforces them to get done faster and more complete than if we just pay the ticket and walk away. Our financials hasn't changed really over the last 3 years. This time of year, the last 2 years, 5 months in, we've been at the exact same financial structure, and we're with only a difference of about $3,000 to $5,000 from the last 2 years. We still are running the Planning Commission, and we've had 2 meetings in the last 5 months, and 4 cases, actually 5, if you count the 5th case being the approval of the master plan for the city. Zoning Board of Appeals, we've had 1. I know we have 2 coming up, and there was 2 cases in those. Dangerous Building Board, we've had 2 cases in the last 5 months, 2 meetings, 4 cases, and those all have resided in demolition or renovation. In our demolition and our renovation in the last 5 months, we have taken 4 buildings down, and we are in the process of renovating for the buildings that were intended to be on the demolition board. They've agreed they would, under structure, they would go back to putting them back together. And so 4 of those are in the process already. 4 of them have already come down, and we're looking to turn down at least 3 more before we get through this winter season. And we'll see how that goes in money and time. Here's where we really want to wrestle with where we're at. We spent this last year, in particular the last 5 months, addressing previous goals and implementations that we wanted to get done. And I noted in the appreciation of being a part of the city and the team, this last year particularly has been a battle trying to get rid of all the legal issues in our ordinance and our performances over the last 4 to 5 years that has caused legal court cases against the city. And with the help of the legal department and way we rewrote things and processed our rental policy, processed our data entries in our building department, we have now completed that cycle. And as of December, we have finished the first complete 3-month cycle of our new rental registration policy. Our policy now starts 3 months before compliance is ready, and they're required within 10 days to have all life safety done and for another inspection, and then the remainder of the 90 days prior to their compliance to have it completed. Now what we'll do in this coming month, starting today, is we'll begin to evaluate what the enforcement of how long it takes some of these individuals to comply, even though they're past their compliance. So we'll test that legal battle that we have coming in the next couple of weeks to see what process we take with that. But in that result, that is operational and fully developed. We now register every one of our properties again based on the original registration date, not on an issue of compliance when it could get dragged out to a 3-year to a 5-year or some other strange, bizarre number. So we've fixed through all those. We've gone through all the legals. The courts have been very supportive. The legal counsel has been supportive. And so that's where we have come to that. The other part that we've had to fix in our building department, particularly in our rental, is that we had a selected party of the mayor's appointment to what a code appeals board would be, and it's the same as our dangerous building. But as you know, you've approved it a few months back. We've created a policy manual that wasn't in operation in compliance with the 2015 IPMC state manual that we operate under. That now is in place, and that will be tested in this month of December, as there will be at least 3 requests that disapproved of my administrative appeals decision on what they've asked for, and so they've written a letter requesting a hearing with the appeals board. And so that'll be tested for the first time since I've been in the city as of May 1st, 2017. And those things I'm encouraged to say we have made, they're operating, and they're functioning. As we go forward, planning for the future is always part of the big picture for John Myers. I think it's valuable to think down the road instead of in the present day as well. And so one of the things that we've wanted to address is expanding our pre-sale inspection, which we will pass on for the moment and move to issues. More importantly, in the next 30 to 60 days, we'd like to present to you modified requests for some fee schedule changes that will allow us going forward to have a better balance between our commercial buildings and our trades versus our residential. And so I think we have a chance to get a better balance for both residential and business people and be more responsive in comparison to both downriver and state fees that are going across the board in this current day. As you know, building goes up, costs go up, and sometimes we don't match the fee when we do commercial building contractors. And we probably should, based on the responsibility that we are now given to comply with what they're doing for the state. So we'd like to bring that in the very near future, in the next 30 to 60 days. The other one, as you remember, with Matt Koppler on the board, on staff with us, it was a request in a contract for, through Matt, to the company of McKenna to help produce a procedure and policy manual for the building and board department. That has been submitted to us about a month and a half ago, but now it has to go through my scrutiny to make sure that it is actually not just a photocopy of some of the city with some of the documentations, but it actually meets our procedures and manuals. And so when I say phase 1, if you're not familiar with the building department, there's many phases of detailed, accurate data entries. And so if we can start with everyday routine responsibilities will be one thing, but then everything else that takes place in the building department, we'll give ourselves a little more time to clean it up, such things as how do the POs properly get written? How do we manage each of the 4 commissions and boards that we operate? And so if we get all the details into those, how are we assessing for our building department inspectors the difference between commercial buildings and C of Os from a group use A to H, and a type of building from hazard to residential to commercial. So whatever those pieces would be, we need to put those in a documentation so that you have a standard to look at the building department in the future and go, this is how the policy says you should be operating. So right now, you have a struggle, just like many other people that read it online. As we get to be a transparent city, when you see the word hold versus the word suspension, you don't know the definitions of those words. We want to make sure that those policies are written in such a manner that you can identify for yourself what is expected of the building department today and going forward. So that process is in place. And the last one we want to really address is we want to reorganize the building department structure. Our administration is, right now, our permit techs, they sit 3 in a chair in this city, and then we have a third-party plan review contract, and then we have 6 building inspectors. And what we haven't done so far since I have been here is everybody has been what we would call cross-trained. Everybody does a little bit of everything. And I think we can be far more efficient and more beneficial to both the customer of our city as well as the city council. If particularly in our building department's inspectors, we have people that are all cross-trained, but they have specialties in our city. So if our inspectors now become a specialist to a commercial building and commercial community versus a residential, we can train them, we can certify them, and we can give them the training and specialization for such things as we know. We've talked about it here tonight, potentially the police department and the new court. We're talking about the Sears Plaza being a part of our subject. We want to make sure we have the staff that's focused on that kind of building, that kind of structure, not that they're sharing rental and sharing residential and sharing all the others. So my recommendation as we go forward in the next 30 to 60, 90 days is to restructure our department so that we really know if there's a permit tech running just the rental department. Cross-trained, yes, can do everything else in the building department, but we know one person's addressing our rentals. We know one person's addressing our business district. We might know one person's addressing our permit tech, our permits going in and out of the buildings. So if we have a specialist, why we have cross-training, I think we can get more refined, just like we did with our rental department. We can do that with the entire building. It is nothing new. It's been around for many, many years. It just somewhere in the process of time has gotten lost in our city. And I firmly believe that we should bring it back so that down the road you have a policy manual that you can depend on and follow and make sure whoever's here in the future has a standard that you accept and approve. And then we also have the best performance we can possibly get in any one of our regular continued issues that we have. And so there's my short review for the night. I want to thank you for that. I did put together, you probably can't see it, I have it in copy. I did put together a suggestion of a building department plan of how it would look out from council to mayor back to myself, and then on how we would divide the city employees. So I put it together. I'll make it available to you. But that's my report. As it is tonight, I want to again thank you very much for the opportunity of serving you and working with you. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure. Anyone have a question?
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. Yes, John, I know you're the building department, so I do have a question in regards to Mayflower Street, 700 block on the corner, the house that was on fire, that caught fire.
Yes.
Neighbors want to know, I drove by there time and time, and it's still standing.
Blue Star is the company hired by the owner. They have a escrow account sitting in the city, and they apparently got several injuries and they got set back. But I understand they have committed to taking it out of the ground and leveling it before the end of this year. But they are the company that's scheduled and hired. They could take it down as a homeowner cheaper than we could take it down as a city. So that's where they're going to do with it.
Thank you.
Anything further? Yes.
Through the chair, Your Honor. John, how do you, what percentage, I guess, do you think we are as far as having the rentals registered?
We're probably about 75%. We're probably not where we would like to be. We probably still maybe, that might be a little low. I'm going to guess without taking a unprepared question. I'm guessing we might be still between 1,000 and 1,400, 1,500 that we may not have found. And so there's a difference between knowing what's out there we can prove that is rental that we're taking to court and getting their movement versus companies we just haven't found yet.
And then if I could just add,
Sure.
I just want to say congratulations on your 2 years with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for your continued commitment to moving the department forward. I know that change has been long and hard, and I know you're determined to see us through. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair, if I
Yes,
might.
go ahead.
It's nice to have you give the report instead of McKenna. Thank you very much. You
You're
did a nice
welcome.
job. I like your touch at the end with the little hat thing. I think that's nice. I didn't think you were going to make it for the years, but you survived. Yeah, I lost the pool, the bet pool, but you did, and you did a good job. And I guess my only comment is that you are our representative, obviously, in the building department. You are our employee, and you run the building department. If you have some issues that you need to have help with, you can always come to the council or to the liaison to get that done, because sometimes change is a little difficult for everybody.
I've made those, when I've had them, I have addressed the liaison directly, and then I have addressed the city manager, letting him know when issues have come up that I thought were important to address, that were liabilities potentially to the city.
Thank you. I guess we haven't abused you enough, but I'll let you go. Thank you. Nice report.
Through the chair. John, I know you've tried to take care of all the problems in the department. There's still a few that haven't been taken care of. I wish you'd look a little more into those and see if they can be taken care of.
I think we're doing with that right now. As again, we've addressed to the liaison some things that have taken place in the month of October that we've went right to the city legal attorney and took their advice and offset that decision as quickly as possible. So those were concerns, and they've been brought to the liaison. They've been brought to city management, so that we can take a look at future plans for the building department. And some of the homework just has to be completed.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing further for Ms. Myers, thank you, John. Appreciate that. We've reached you wanted to continue on your report? Is that what you're saying?
If I could. Again, I would like to, John's been here 2 years, I've been here 10 weeks. And as has been discussed this evening, and I knew coming in that there was many things on your minds. Lots of things on your minds. I had spent time with Matt relative to the things that he knew needed to be picked up and carried on with his departure. And he had a full plate. He passed that full plate over. And then there's more things that have arrived and come forward. So what I want to say about the human resources area of the city is that we have good employees. We have some areas where we're short. And we're short of employees both in terms of money and in terms of what we're paying. And again, almost all the employees are under some kind of labor agreement. And if you know about contracts, and I know you do, you just can't change a labor agreement without negotiation. And so what we are attacking, what we're working on, and we will have recommendations for you by the very soon, as I indicated in this report, is on the matter of part-time wages. When you look at the report that we put together, almost all of our full-time positions are full. And we have, in the case of, for instance, in the police department, we have one vacancy currently, but there is a person that is going through the process of becoming a full-time police officer here. We recently went through the process in other areas. But if you scan down the first page, with the exception of the most all, with the exception in this area here of part-time in the public service area. We're hurting for part-time laborers, both seasonal as well as year-round. And a lot of that has to do with wages. In the case of the mechanic in public services, what mechanics are getting today in the way of hourly rate and fringe benefits, our current labor contract that we have, the money it's not competitive. It's just not competitive. And so we advertise and advertise and advertise, and I know that you are concerned about how we're advertising, where we're advertising. Are we every day, just like we empty the drop box every morning, and the people that paid their water bill overnight or paid their taxes overnight or whatever, every day we open up that computer program to look to see, have we gotten any applications from people that want to work for the city? It's the first thing we do every day. It's not the last. And so wages are an issue. And trying to get a handle on what are other people paying? What can we afford? And once you start working with wages in the part-time area, at the entry-level area, if you move them up, of course you have to move up the people that are part-time, that are in the middle, or perhaps have been here for some time as part-time employees. If the bottom moves up, high tide raises all boats. And so it's not just let's raise the minimum number at the bottom up. We've got to think about those in the middle and the upper end. And we need to do that carefully so that we don't create new problems for ourselves, for yourselves. And I don't, as I've said before in this room, I want to make a good decision. I don't want to make a fast decision. And so I want to bring you things that you will look at, and if you tweak them and change them, I understand that. That's your job. But I don't want to throw something at you that's half-baked, and you look at us and think, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? It's not well thought out. So I want to make good recommendations to you and not fast ones. But we're working on it, and we're going to have something to you soon in this area, part-time. If you flip over to the second page, whoops, on the back. As just pointed out, how the Finance Department is working with the Treasury Department to make that work. Fire, it's very interesting. We have 3 full-time fire positions that could be funded, but we have absolutely no applicants. We've tried and tried and tried, but when we're compared with the communities around here within the Tri-County area, their fringe benefit package is superior to ours. And these young men and women that want to be firefighters, they do their homework. And they don't select coming here. They select somewhere else. We need to address that, and we're going to need to work with you because the negotiations with the firefighters is coming up in the next few months. And that has to be brought into consideration by yourselves, as well as the managers, as well as the labor attorney. Parks and Rec, again, we're hurting for part-time people, and that's why recently, when I was going over, Mr. Parkinson, the list of places that we are reaching out, one place that I didn't see on our list was working with DCC, Downriver Community Conference. In my work with Southgate a while back, I reached out to them, and they brought some people to the table for us, high school kids, college kids, I shouldn't call them kids, high school students, college students that are looking for part-time work. They might live at home, go to school, they've got free hours, they could work at Target, they could work at Myers, but they could work for us. And if we had some competitive rates there, working for the city can be a cool job.
We
Particularly.
also have adult programs there.
Exactly.
People that are looking for.
Exactly. So we've reached out to Mr. Perry. He's worked with us, and he's assigned someone to work with us to try to help us with this particular situation. It was brought up earlier today about the block grant program and housing rehab, and we're well aware and thinking about that, and as far as coming forward in the near future to you. As mentioned, we have one vacancy in the police department, but we do have an officer that's going through the pre-employment process that'll make that a full group. The police chief does oversee the animal shelter workers as well as the crossing guards. What I've been quite interesting to see happen. I've never run into a city with a program like Lincoln Park Pride before. Ordinance is usually in one department or another. It's either in the police department or it's in the building department. This is one where you have two department heads working together on Lincoln Park Pride issues. So the Lincoln Park Pride people identify, they see tall grass, debris, a garage issue or some other issue. They'll communicate with John Myers as to that that's not their job to figure out if something is structurally unsound, but they can certainly point out to him something that they've seen when they've been out there, and vice versa. When the building people are out there, they can mention to the Lincoln Park Pride people about, the tall grass or debris that they saw behind the garage or behind the house that maybe the LP Pride people didn't see. It's a really good thing. The more collaboration you get with staff, the better. And if we try to operate in silos, that's why when Mr. Myers was talking about the cooperation he's getting from the clerk's office and the assessor and police and fire, the more you try to work in silos, the more you miss. The more you work as a team. And that's why, for instance, on the subject of the animal shelter, right away I put together, bringing Lisa together with John Myers, John Kazoo, and Ray and myself, as well as Ray Parker, to think about what's in the best interest of the city long term on some of these things. And admittedly, it's a lot of money and something you'll have to wrestle with. But I think that the situation the city is in relative to its labor contracts is good. You've only got one, really, that's coming up this year. The fire contract will expire at the end of June. And I think it's one that I certainly know the firefighters are thinking about it. And I know the fire chief is thinking about it, and I know you are as well. And you want what's best for the city. And having a good fire department is in the best interest of the city. So we're going to be talking about that as we head into the new year. And in addition to the interviewing you're going to be doing and the budget you're going to be thinking about, we're going to be talking to you about fire matters. But I want to close with mentioning, though, that we are looking at the building department in particular in terms of its contract with McKenna. There have been some issues that I don't think are in the best interest of the city that have happened in the past few months. And but before we come to you with a recommendation about that, we want to think about the costs of bringing the building department, as it's been discussed, back inside. What will we pay those people? Everybody in this community, everybody in this city that works for the city, with the exception of part-timers, are in a bargaining unit. So what bargaining unit would be best to put these people into if we bring them in as city employees? And how will we structure that? So it's one thing to say, let's bring it in-house. It's another thing to say, with good results, where will we pay these people? What will we pay these people? What bargaining unit would they be in? And how will that work in terms of, again, when you're starting to change things like that, you've got to think it through so you don't end up making a big problem or a worse problem for yourself. So I'd be glad to take questions from you tonight. And
But with the understanding, though, that if this is going to go on for more than just a few moments, then we establish a study session and we do it, and we have out to where it can be heard.
No, this should only take a moment, and I'm actually going to be referring to a past study session that we had.
Okay.
I'm going to look at the DPS department, and we had a long conversation about the parks and park maintenance, and we have one part-time person. It's clearly not enough, and I just want to keep bringing that up because I'm going into the budget. I want that seriously looked at. I think we've all talked about it, and it's time that something has to be done.
subsequent to that presentation that was made about the situation of the parks, John Kazoo and Doreen Christian, Dennis Anderson, and myself have met about the maintenance issue. John made a strong case for his situation in terms of wrapping up the fall work and getting ready for winter. Winter came a little bit earlier than even John thought was coming in terms of snow and ice and leaves. But we definitely are going to put a plan together to tackle the maintenance of the parks in calendar year 2020, and with additional help coming over from DPS to help the parks out, get them kind of going back in the right direction again, and then further discussion with you at budget.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else, thank you. A lot of work went into that, John, realized
Thank you.
that. Move on to citizen communications.
My name is Adu Shane, and I live in Lincoln Park. And last Friday in the Detroit News, they had a headline, "Frustration Welcomes State Lawmakers Home for the Holiday. Constituents' views on the budget standoff ranging from blame to disinterest." A sense of frustration about gridlock in Lansing has greeted Michigan lawmakers at home for the fall breaks during a 2-month budget standoff. It seems to me our local politicians are disinterested. Now is the time to get after Lansing. Lansing don't seem to be doing anything. There's too much gridlock in Lansing. It looks like the governor isn't going to get the 49 cents gas tax increased. How about a 10-cent increase now and a 1 cent each month later? I'm glad a council person brought up about these new expenses which will be added to our tax bill. What the total is, I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait till I get my tax bill to find out. And don't forget to bring your scrap paper to the bins on Cleophas behind the library. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Richard Kudrek. Councilman Kelsey also hit me. One of the things I do is I come to council meetings and I said, how much money do people think I have? First of all, we have these unfunded mandates from Lansing that just go on and on and on and on. And I have to repeat again, I'm very upset that the school superintendent was invited to come to a council meeting and talk about the $61 million bond proposal. And neither the city nor the school board has ever admitted it's going to be a $104 million cost to the residents. I actually asked in a council meeting where the $30 million criminal justice center was going to be built. I got a non-responsive response, so I filed a Freedom of Information ask. Just ask where the $30 million criminal justice center was going to be built. That Freedom of Information request was never answered. Found out off the cuff one day, Lincoln Park has a building authority that me and nobody else ever heard of before. So I started asking some questions. No response. Where'd this building authority come from? So finally I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request. I just thought I'd get a real brief email response, what it is, what it does. No, I got a demand from the city, a request from the city. If I want to know what this building authority is, I can pay the city $30 for the information. Really? Well, that's not happening, folks. If the boards, committees, and commissions are all listed on the website, you need to put this building authority on the website where I can look at it for free. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Chris Darzinski. Yeah, thank you to Leah Mortis at the Park Restaurant. 30 years he's been doing Meals on Wheels now. So since my dad passed away, we're not really have to do anything too traditional on Thanksgiving. So I've wanted to be part of that Meals on Wheels for a long time. So my girlfriend and I got to help out the cold food team in the morning. So just a quick note, anything that anybody can do, I'm willing to work with anybody. The Meals on Wheels program, Leah he does Christmas, he does Thanksgiving, I think one other holiday. Some of the other volunteers told me that they used to do a few other holidays, but it all depends on how much funding Meals on Wheels gets. So the more funding we get for Meals on Wheels, then the more meals we get on wheels. So let's figure that one out. Downriver Book Fair is this coming Sunday, December 8th at the Lincoln Park Library, right next door to us. Municipal parking available for all, and especially in the median there. $2 for an adult, $1 16 and under, $4 for a family to get in. All proceeds will be split between the Lincoln Park Library. The door proceeds, that is, will be split between the Lincoln Park Library and the school library system. And that will be this Sunday, December 8th, noon to 6. Books, crafter vendors, other vendors. So please come out and support that event, and know that every dollar you put in at the door proceeds goes right back into to the libraries. My Nothing But Comics holiday show, small little comic show at the VFW Post, 552 1125 4th Street, and that'll be Saturday, December 14th from 10 to 5 p.m. $2 to get in for adults, $1 for kids, $4 for as big as family as you want. And again, a traditional Nothing But Comics. 20% of my door proceeds I'll be donating back to Blessed Hope Christian Church to further sustain their food pantry. The big snowfall that we had on November 1st, I still get these calls on occasion. A lady was snowed in, and she needed help, and she wanted to know if I could help her find someone to come shovel her snow. And so the family that lives next to me, Angel and his and all his sons and daughters, so Juan was kind enough to go over and shovel her snow, and now she has a new someone new to shovel her snow the rest of the winter. So our big event, our Lincoln Park Penny Drop, our New Year's Eve event, now in its 5th year. The KISS Tribute Band, Detroit Rock City, Michigan's premier KISS Tribute Band, and dinner. Tickets are $25 each. This will be at the Moose Lodge on New Year's Eve, starting 7 p.m. You can see Councilman Higgins or myself. Tickets are being sold at Celebrity Silver. They'll also be available at they're available at the Moose Lodge. So let's get a whole bunch of people. Seating is limited to 200. So please let's get those tickets sold, and everybody enjoy the biggest New Year's Eve event we've ever had in Lincoln Park. The All Day Jam coming up March 28th. Seems like a long time away. It is not. I'd like to really see 100 residents step forward, our business owners, and everybody just donate one raffle basket, and just mark it down on your calendar. Anything can be a raffle item, anything from a stuffed animal to a Porsche 959. I prefer the 959 S4, in case anybody cares. And we'll start that off at a $5 raffle ticket. So mark it on your calendar, Saturday, March 28th, and just bring your raffle basket into the VFW by 10 a.m. And if we get 100 baskets, then that makes it easier to make it a much larger event. Yep. putting together my second annual Spring Fest. Just mark it on your calendar, April 4th. It'll be at the VFW. And again, 20% of whatever door proceeds I bring in that day will go back to Blessed Hope to continue to sustain their food pantry. Thank you.
Sean Stansberry. Last week, I asked a question about the trees on the city easement. I had Lisa come up, and I asked her if whose fault it would be if a vehicle was damaged, and she said the city would not be liable. I just wonder, how is that even possible, considering if a tree has already lost big limbs, it's blocking the street, it's happened before on a tree, something happens and it comes down, even if it doesn't, I think the city should have some liability as far as that goes. I know a homeowner, if you're a homeowner and you have a tree on your property and it damages someone's house or car, your insurance or you have to pay to get that taken care of. So I'd like to ask the city attorney through the chair, what shields a city from liabilities with stuff like that? Can you answer that, Ed? Mr. Zolnick?
I'll give a very basic answer.
Give a basic answer, sir.
My chair is stuck in the mud back here, so let me move it up. Pushed it back here. Essentially, under the governmental immunity statutes and the state cases, the Supreme Court cases that support the independent objectivity of the communities, you're immune unless there's a prior notice of a defect, includes sidewalks, streets. There's got to be some evidence of negligence in advance in order to hold the city liable. And it's a case-by-case basis. You turn in claims, are either accepted or denied. But generally, the city denies claims with trees because it's usually an act of God that brings a limb down. And no one's had much success in suing God yet and hasn't passed that through to the city. So that's just the shortest answer I can give. It's a case-by-case basis, and notice is always a requirement to show liability on the part of the city.
Okay, so I can understand that, but what if there's a tree that's already lost a limb? The DPS had to come out, clear the street, and it looks like it's dying, and what if another limb comes down and takes out two vehicles? Then what would happen? Same thing?
You know, the smart lawyers don't give conjecture opinions ahead of time. in
All right, well,
advance.
then don't worry about it. We won't worry about that then, just move on. I want to talk about soil contamination and demolition sites in Lincoln Park. Is the city using clean fill, and where is it coming from? I know a couple years ago, the city was supplying the fill from demos from the water main breaks from the DPS yard. I'm just wondering if that's still going on or what we're doing there. I know the city of Detroit had a problem with that. Actually, as we speak, they're having an issue with that. It's been on the news. I feel that all sites should have soil samples collected once the fill's put in and settled to ensure the safety for the residents. You know, obviously the people on adjoining properties close to that. So maybe I can get John up here or something when I'm done and he can answer that.
If you send something to him or send something to the city manager, a question, he'll get that researched and answered for you.
Okay. All right. Also with demolition, what precautions are the demo companies taking to prevent damage from debris and dust? Maybe I'll ask that too. I feel that every demo in the city should have water sprayed on the demo as it's being taken place. I don't think we do that. I've seen a couple, but I don't know, lately if that's been done. And then also I'll ask the interim city manager what the dimensions are for a lot that's buildable and non-buildable. I think John Meyer told me that before, but I don't remember. And on a different note, I would like to ask for council to consider a resolution to expand citizen communication up here at the podium from 5 minutes to 7 minutes. I will work with anyone up here to get this together. I don't know if you need me or not, but I'll send an email to everybody tomorrow on the issue and see if anybody reaches out. You got 5 people that come up here every council meeting. That's an extra 10 minutes. I don't see why that should be a no-brainer. People in the city come up here, they want to talk about stuff. Sometimes you don't say anything, sometimes you do. But I think that we should get at least 2 more minutes. So, because I know I'm sick of being cut off when it's at the end. So, we just got to remember
the citizens of Lincoln Park put everybody in this position. I ran for council, but I also voted for people too. So we need to remember that. Last year, I had a lady that lost her dog in my neighborhood, and I came up here and I talked about it. And someone was watching, and they heard what was going on, and they thought they knew where the dog was at. Come to find out, someone stole the dog. They called the lady. She come with the police. Police came, and they proved that it was her dog. So she got her dog back. So I've got another flyer here. Lady's name's Shirley.
That is your time, sir. If you hand that to the chief of police, he'd be glad to
I'll
share
talk
with
about
you.
it next council meeting. Thanks.
Very good.
Sorry for giving that answer without waiting, Mayor.
Seeing no one else approaching, we'll move to oral reports of the council. Council President Breeding.
Been a long evening, but I wanted to just say something about Kyle Stack. Kyle Stack was the city clerk for many, many years, and before she ran for mayor, she was my roommate when we went to any kind of classes or whatever. Just a joyful, wonderful woman, and we're all just shocked. And I wish her husband Bill whatever comfort. Okay, over the weekend we went to the grand opening of Fantasyland, and I want to thank all the volunteers. I mean, it takes an awful lot to put all of those displays together and everything else, but then all the kids and all the volunteers that's walking around and showing people how to go to the line for Santa Claus or whatever. I want to thank all of the volunteers. Then we had the tree lighting service. Councilman Higgins and I thought it was at 6 o'clock, and it was at 6:30, and so we sat in the car for half an hour or whatever. It was beautiful. The tree out front is beautiful this year. I think that's the nicest that it has ever looked since we planted a tree. But anyways, I didn't go over to the museum because it was too cold. This old woman was cold. So that's all that I have, and again, my condolences to Kyle's husband on her passing. Thank you.
Councilman Salcido.
Yes, I'll make it brief. I just want to say last Saturday was Small Business Saturday, so I did frequent some shops in Lincoln Park that I just want to share with you. I can't name them all, but there's a new jewelry shop, repair shop on Riverbank and 4th Street, Teresa's Jewelry. Please check that out. She fixes stuff. She makes stuff out of silver, gold, you name it, she'll make it. Also, just one resale. It's on 4th Street off of New York Street. They have a lot of closeouts. They also do online stuff, so check that business out. That's pretty new. Mom's Kitchen will be opening up tomorrow morning, from what I hear. I was there Saturday and again today. It's on 4th Street and Capitol. Used to be the old Coney Island. So check Mom's Kitchen out. They have an array of foods from Coney to Mexican food, soups, chilies. They seem real nice. Celebrity Silver, they've been around for a while. I was in there talking to Todd. He had a good crowd in there on Saturday from what I saw. Also, last but not least, A&R Music. They've been in Lincoln Park 42 years. I know my kids had music lessons there. I bought some stuff there, but if you have any music needs, check out A&R Music, one of our last, they've been around 42 years, one of the last city businesses. Yeah, successful business, so please check that out. Tree lighting ceremony was nice. If you would have dressed warmer, you wouldn't have been so cold. So with that, I will say thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you, Your Honor. I hope everyone's enjoying, or did enjoy those holiday events that we had. They were fun. But with that said, Fantasyland, I heard, was voted Downriver's best Christmas display. So Channel 7, I think, is going to have their story on December the 5th, if I'm right. So again, and of course, thank you to all the Fantasyland volunteers. I think that honor is long overdue. They should get that every year. And then before we came, Councilman Kelsey and I came to the meetings at 6 today. We stopped by the fire department, so I want to say thank you to the fire chief and Lieutenant Wright for giving us a tour of the new fire truck. It is beautiful. And if you were at the tree lighting, you've seen Santa come to the tree lighting in that fire truck. So That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Higgins.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the thoughts about Fantasyland. It is excellent as it is every year. And the tree lighting was spectacular. It was cold, though, I agree. I would like to give not a shout out, that's not the proper words, but there was an accident after the tree lighting, and there was a woman who was taken away in an ambulance, and I hope everything is okay. It was a very sad thing to see right after such a joyous night, right out here next to City Hall, but our guys, the fire department was there instantaneously. The police were right there. They did a marvelous job cleaning up, and I want to thank all of them for that. A sad way for the night to end, but a spectacular night with the lighting and the singing and the White Castles. Was that not nice? The White Castles came and gave food. It's the little things, And another sad thing that I'd like to report, he was a school employee, but he was longtime sixth grade teacher at Hoover School, Mr. Schaff. A lot of us remember him very fondly. He was very involved in a lot of things with the district, and a very good man, and Mr. Schaff will be missed. He passed away. I'd like to remind everybody that the Moose is still doing their food drive, and we do the food drive. You drop the food up there, we will get it to Blessed Hope. And of course, it was already mentioned by the audience, but I'm going to mention it again. This New Year's Eve, we have the best KISS tribute band in the land. They have won contests all over the country. They were given a win at a contest hosted by Gene Simmons himself, the bass player for KISS, if you don't know. This is a truly remarkable band. Please come out New Year's Eve. And the money is all going to our summer concerts to keep them free, and also to our summer kids programs. So there is it's a win-win, a good food, good band, and the money goes to good charity. Remind everybody about the book fair this Sunday at the library. It's going to be great. And again, the money goes back to the library itself. This is all done by the hands of the city. And lastly, I'd like to echo what my colleague across the hall says. Shopping local helps everybody. And if you can shop in Lincoln Park, it helps our own people. And if you stop and think about it, we still do have good places in Lincoln Park to shop. And there's this holiday coming up where people like to buy stuff for people. So now's the time to shop at Lincoln Park. Buy some stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Kelsey.
Thank you. Donna, I ate your White Castle, so you weren't there. I got yours, so sorry you left. But they were very good. The White Castles were good. The chocolate was good, and it was a nice time. Like everybody said, both events were very well put on by a lot of volunteers, and they were very nice events for the city. When people say that the city doesn't have much going on, I guess you got to open the door and walk out. That's all I got to say. And small business, same thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to look around. I mean, if you take time in your busy schedule and look, there's a lot of things that go on in this city, put on by a lot of volunteers and a lot of people that like to have people come to the city. The other thing I'd like to say is that this was said before by me, but they're doing a student heart check at Fortson High School on Saturday, December the 14th. The screening is free for kids 13 to 18 and will be from 9 to 4 p.m. Registration is already open, and we have room for approximately 400 students, and I think the mayor put something out on that also, I think. So there's something in Dearborn you can go and get your kids screened, and it's something that saves you some money, and also it's done by a very reputable hospital, Beaumont. The last thing I'd like to say is that I've been the liaison for a while between the assessor's office and the school board. School board doesn't have much to say. I just sit there, so there's nothing to report from them. They're doing fine. The assessors department, they're going to give a report later on, I'm sure, but they come across quite a few interesting issues that the council might be interested in when they report that. And I think our money was well spent to hire that person. So with that, I'd say thank you, and all set, Your Honor.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Parkinson.
Thank you. We can start off with the animal shelter. It looks like a very nice building they're going to put up. And with some creative use of funds from bringing departments back in-house, we can pay for that without costing anybody a dime. Sam Carmagno, I talked to him about recycling. He explained to me about the, when you say the load is contaminated, no, not the whole load. They dump the load and they sort the bad stuff out of it. So there's a percentage that does go to landfill. And he's gonna work with me to find out what kind of percentage that they're gonna have. Be careful, it's gonna cold and snow, watch out for your neighbors, children, seniors, and your animals. And Fantasyland, I helped build Fantasyland for quite a few years because city employees were sent over there back in the day because we had so many employees. And we helped build Fantasyland. It is a very monumental thing to dive into. Takes a lot of people to build it. So Fantasyland's been fantastic for years, and I hope it goes on for a lot more. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The visitation for Mayor Kyle Sack of Trenton is at the Trenton City Hall. It's Wednesday. It starts at 3:30 and it goes to 7:30 p.m. And there will be a live tribute, I think, from 7:30 to 8 from dignitaries that are that knew her and stuff. So if make an attempt to go down there if you know her. And lastly, Fantasyland is open Saturdays and Sunday from 2 to 8, if you have not heard. I'm still right on the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 4 to 8. If you talk about treasures in the city, and there's a lot of things, I guess, that would qualify, but there is one that has risen to the top consistently since it opened some 53, 54 years ago, and that is Fantasyland. So even if you don't have any kids, it'd be a good idea to come down and do that. And if they're still looking for people to help out during the course of the event to keep the displays safe and such, if you have some free time, check in there and just one thing about having a treasure is sometimes you have to even guard it, even if it is Fantasyland. So if you have some extra time, then come down and do that. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Full council.
So, clerk call the roll.
Councilperson Salcido?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Breeding?
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yes.
Parkinson?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
And Mayor Carnes.